Hi, this is Eric. Welcome to another great tutorial. Like I do always, I'm gonna break this down. So first off, I just go into the first segment. We're gonna take care of the folding of the cube itself. We're duplicating them a couple of times to make the grid. We're gonna do the floor, which is this one. We're gonna see how we're gonna do the reflection, and after that we're gonna render it and we do the post grading, we do the final grading over here. Let's go to the timeline and I'll show you what we're gonna be doing today. So now let's get busy, let's get started. First off, I'm going to delete this one so we can make a new one. I'm going to go to effects and then I'm going to find fusion composite, bring it down to the timeline. Let's just dive into the fusion tab. First off, we're going to put down a shape node, view it on the left side. We're going to use a couple of transforms to build up our cube. Shift spacebar and type in transform, a 3D transform mode. And I'm gonna name this first transform shape 0. We're gonna be naming them so we can refer to them later on. And if we view that, rotate it on the x-axis, so we're gonna make it like 90 degrees. You right click and go to 3D options and make sure there's lightning scene. So if I go back to the rotation again, if I did it negative, you can see that on the other side, this is where the normals are, so it receives light. We want to build the cube in a way that the normals are inside, so we're gonna flip it -90 instead. In this way we can achieve our translucency. Okay, so we're gonna put down another transform node. This is 3D transform, and we also need a merged 3D. We'll bring it here. So what I do is I put this one here and then I pipe the same thing here. So we're making a copy of this one that we've already rotated, and we're gonna merge it together. So if you look at them, it's stuck on top of it. So if we move this one, we got a copy of it. First copy, we're gonna go up this way. This is how we're gonna build it. So we're gonna go up this way and we're gonna make sure it's precise. So on the x-axis, we just want to round it up to 1 and we 0 the z-axis. We're gonna rename the shape and make it shape. It would be good if I know how to spell shape. I do. So shape 1. We're gonna make a copy of that, paste it, and from here we're always gonna pipe in from shape 0 because that's the flat one. We just want this one. Make a copy of that one instead. Okay, so we just pipe it in here to make a copy of that one as well. And I'm gonna name this as shape 2 just to tidy up. And then we're gonna pipe shape 2 as well in here. So what we're gonna do in the shape 2, we just wanna move it on the z-axis to the side. So if you round it up, you can see it's -1. That's it. So let's move on. Copy shape 2, paste, pipe this one in here, add it to the scene. And this time we want to move on the x-axis over there. So we just make it like a Z, kind of a zigzag kind of movement, yeah? So we're going to move on the x-axis. So first of all, just move it a bit till it's about there. Then you can see it's 1.9, so we have to round it up to 1. Oh, sorry, it has to be 2. 1.9 rounding up is going to be 2, so 2 over there. Just rename it shape 3. Again, copy, paste, pipe this one in there, put it on top of it, add it to the scene, and this time we're gonna go on the left, on the z-axis. So we're gonna make it -2 this time. So this one is gonna fold onto this one fold onto that, and this one fold onto this, and this one fold onto that. Good. So we're gonna name this one shape 4. Now on the last shape has to be here. If you look at what we've created now, if we take this side, if we rotate it on the x-axis, we can see we're gonna fold this way, and then this one is gonna fold on the z-axis that way, and then this one is gonna flip on the x-axis this way. Then later on, this one will also come on the z-axis this way. This side, this side, this side, and the top of it. So we need one more at this right side of it. So that's gonna be separate. So let's copy the last one and paste again. and then pipe this one in here and add it to the scene. We're going to do is to zero down everything, 0, and then move it to the side so we can see it's around 1. Create a new transform node and create a var. I like to animate this way. If you watch my previous tutorials, I always like to put down a transform node, rename it to vars. By the way, press F2 to rename it to vars, and I'm gonna add a control to it. Right click and go to edit controls, and I'm gonna name the control that I'm gonna add fold. And it's going to be a number, it's going to be on the controls page, and it's also going to be a slider. So let's just add it to it. Alright, so we're just going to animate this value. I'll go to frame 0 and add a keyframe to it, and I move to frame 60, set the keyframe to 1. Now let's go to shape 1. We're going to animate this first because this is what we want to fold first. So we're going to find that one, and that should be this one, I guess. Yeah, the shape 4 is what we're gonna rotate on the x-axis, but first we need to set the pivot, because if we rotate on the x-axis, you can see that if you go closer to it, we're not getting it right. It's going all the way down there and it's not aligning with it, so we need to set the pivot right before we rotate it. So I'm gonna set the rotation back to 0, and then I'm gonna go down to pivot, and I can use this. We just want to set the z-axis there. You can push it a bit, and then you roughly know that it's around 0.5, so round it up by 0.5, so we get the pivot right in the middle where they meet. So now if you rotate on the x-axis, it sits on top of the other one. Great. Alright, so we're gonna right click and put expression, and then we're gonna type in vars.fold. That's going to get the fold value there, but that's only moving from 0 to 1, so it's just going to move slightly, don't see it. So what we can do is to multiply it by 90, so it's going to move, it's going to be from 0 to 1, it's going to be 0 to 90. So let's see what we have. There we have it, slowly moving up. Good. I think it's a bit slow, so let's go back to the animation, and instead of from 0 to 60, let's just edit our keyframes. Let's show the keyframes here, our keyframe fold, and we're going to select both of these keyframes, and we're going to hit the shape box. So I'm going to scale it down till the last point is around where I want it. So I'm going to leave it at frame 30. There we have it. So now the trick here is we want to animate this shape 3 on the z-axis. At the same time, we also want to move the shape 4 on the z-axis as well, so that it aligns with this one. Alright, so reset this back to 0. So what I'm going to do is to put down a merge node. So we're going to merge these two together, the 3 and the 4. So we have both of them. If you view them here, you can see just the 2 here. So these 2 now being transformed by this merge node. So instead we're going to take them off from the scene, these 2, and then add them here. So now that we have these 2 here, we can easily go into the transform for the merge node and rotate the merge node instead. So when we rotate the merge node, they move together, as you can see. So now we have to set the pivot right. So I'm going to go onto the merge to pivot, and I'm going to set the pivot on the z-axis, on the x-axis as well. We want to set it right at the bottom, sitting there, so we can see that it's roughly about 1.5 on the x, and then roughly on the z it's going to be -1. There we have it. So now if we rotate on the z-axis of the merge node, it moves both of them together. Great. So now we have to get, all we need to do is to get the animation from here, from shape 4 to merge 3D2. So on the z-axis, we're going to put expression on there, and then we're going to go by saying vars, or not vars, we're getting from shape 4. So shape 4, then we put semicolon, then we say get value, and we put open parentheses and close parentheses, and we put quotation inside it, and in the code we're gonna put the attribute that we want. So if you come to the transform 4 and you put your mouse on the X rotation and look down here as you put the mouse on it, you can see the name of the shape. The name of the variable we want to get is shape4.transform3dop.rotate.x. It's case sensitive. You can see 3do are capitalized and p is lowercase, and then we have rotate.x. So we're going to put the same thing without the shape4. Let's go to the mesh 3d2, and inside the quotation put transform 3do capitalized and lowercase p dot capital R rotate dot x capitalized. So that's the value we want to get, and after the quotation we're going to put a comma in time. You can see that they all move at the same time. We can just leave it like this, but we need to wait for the first one to at least go past about 5 frames before the second one starts animating. So what we're going to do is in the expression here, after the time, we can say -5. So we can see that the first one left before this one, after 5 frames before that one comes. But it's going to be tedious if you have to go to every other expression and put -5. So that's why I like to work in this way. So that's why I created the vowels. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another attribute on the vowels. So I add edit control, and I'm gonna call this delay, and it's gonna be a number control on the slider. I keep on saying this all the time because it's fun. So now we have a delay that we can reference. So now I can go back to the expression, and then instead of saying -5, we can then say vowels dot delay. And if we go into vowels, we can change the delay here to even, let's say 15. Let's exaggerate a bit. Now it's gonna wait 15 frames later, then that one is gonna animate. That's great. So let's set our delay back to 5. And now let's move on to the next one. So here we have this 2 animated. So we're gonna move shape 2 has to also rotate on its x-axis, and it has to move with both shape 3 and 4. We repeat the same thing we did here. So we're gonna match this 2 with this. So I'll put a match 3D, and I'm gonna match this 2, which are coming from here. Let's take it out from the scene, and we're gonna match this 2 with this. So if we animate match 3, let's move it this way so we understand what's going on. So we take this 2, we match it with this one, so we have 3 of them over here. Then we take this one out of the scene, then rather put all of them in the scene here. So now what we do is to set the pivot for match 3, and the pivot needs to be around here, this area. So let's go into the transform and go to the pivot, and let's play around with the settings here. So we can move it here, and roughly we're getting about 1, and on the Z roughly we're going about -5. So let's go ahead and put expression on it, and let's go to the match 3D2 and copy the same expression here, and let's make some changes to it. Go to the match 3, paste the expression there, but this time because we want all of them to delay one after the other and not use the same delay, we don't want to get the animation from shape 4 because we're going to get it from match 3D2 instead. Press F2 to get the name. You can copy the name here, and then you come to match 3D3, and we're going to replace shape 4 with it. So we're getting the animation from match 3D2 because it's been delayed already. So that's going to make the delay very useful, and it's going to make sense if we take the delay from here. So now we just don't want to get we're going to go down. We're not getting the rotate X because if you look at the match 3D2, there's no animation on rotate X. The animation is on Z, so we want to change that as well. So we're getting it from Z, and it should be capitalized Z. So that's it, and there you have it. Is already, we've got 3 animated, and they're all using delay. So let's move on to the next one, which is this one, shape 1. Same thing, put a match node. It's match 4. We want to take the last one, that's the 3 of them, and then take them out of the scene. And the 3 of them, it's about time we save. And the 3 of them, we're gonna match the shape 1 to it. So we have all of them. So we can take shape 1 out of the scene, move this ahead, and then pipe all of them here. There we have it. So now we can set the pivot for match 4, which should be around here. So let's go into the pivot and start to move things. It's roughly about 0.5, and that should be it. So if we move, we're gonna rotate that on a Z. So if we go to rotation and start rotating on the Z, it's gonna move all of them on the Z axis. So let's put expression on it. Go to match 3D 3 and copy the expression over there. Now paste it here on the Z. We're gonna change the name from 2 to 3 because we want to get it from here, because this one has delayed as well. So from match 3 to 2, from match 3 to 3, and then we also want to get the expression on the X axis, X rotation. So we're gonna make sure it's set to X, not Z, and that should be it. So now we have our box folding up. Save. Great. Now we're left with the last one, which is this one here. No, sorry, should be shape 5. Let's rename it to shape 5. So we're gonna animate that separately, and we're gonna take the animation from match 3D 4 for it. So first off, let's set the pivot. Go to pivot, and let's move things around. Obviously not on the X, we want on the Z. So it should be around here. That's roughly minus 0.5. thereabouts. So we're gonna rotate it on the X axis as well. So let's just put an expression on it, and then go to the match 3D4, and we're gonna copy the expression in there, and we're gonna go to shape 5 and paste our expression there. But obviously we're gonna change from 3 to 4, so we're referencing that one. And also we want to get the Z rotation, not the X, because if you look at it here, it's on the Z rotation. So now it looks like it's doing it, but it's doing it the wrong way. So let's reverse this. Oh, it's easy to do. Just go in the expression before anything else. Before the expression, just put minus. This is going to reverse it, and that's it. It's time to save. So now we have our cube folding up nicely. If you come back a bit to see the animation, you can see we have it. But right now it's a bit jerky, so that's because of the delay. It's too much. So let's go back in the vowels, and then let's bring the delay down to about 2, and let's play it and see. Yeah, it's a bit better. Now let's go ahead and make the scene. I'm gonna select all of this and bring them here a bit. And so we're gonna put down a 3D scene. So we're gonna rename this scene as our main scene, and we're gonna rename this match as the cube, and the other point light to the cube scene, and we're gonna lift it up so it will be in the center of the cube. So if you go to the transform, it's gonna be like 0.5. So after the cube has folded, it's gonna stay in the middle, and that's gonna give us that translucent effect. And this light must be animated as well. So we're gonna go into the point light, to the intensity. We're gonna put our expression on it and say vowels dot fold. It's gonna start off dark, and it's gonna fully light up. This is all we need for our cube. So let's duplicate it a couple of times and do the magic. So we're gonna put down a duplicate 3D, not a duplicate, but duplicate 3D. Put it down, pipe the cube in it, and let's view that one. Now what it is that we're gonna make 3 copies of it. They're all stacked on top of each other. So let's just offset the X, not the X, on the Z, and roughly I think about, let's put it about 1, no, 1.5. Oh, let's go back and see when it was folded to see. As you can see, the spacing is not quite right because this is colliding with each other. So we want to space it a little bit more. So let's make it 2, and that is about it. So you can see the snapping perfectly. Great. So let's set the offset to about -10 frames. So that we can see the animation is being offset each copy with the lighting and everything. So that's what we get. Nice, cool one. Great. And we're gonna make another copy on the X. So we take the same duplicate, copy it and paste, and pipe that last duplicate into it. And let's see that one. And that's gonna, the offset, we're gonna reset the offset on Z, and we're gonna rather move it on the X. So that will also be like 1, or that should be 2 as well. So let's see when it's folded. Everything seems to be okay. Let's save. Alright, so now there we have it, everything being offset. Great. Now we can add it to the main scene. So we have our main scene here. The next thing that we're gonna do is to add some camera to the main scene. We need to add some camera animation. So we add a camera 3D onto the main scene here. Let's make some space so we know. Let's start coloring things here. We can select all of this and then right click any of them and say set color, and we can choose a different color to differentiate it, so we know that all of these is our cube. You move it here, and our main scene is right about here. Great. Let's save. So let's animate the camera. So I'm going to view the main scene on this side, and the same thing at the same time I'm going to move it here, view it on both sides. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to set the one on the right click on the perspective and set it to the camera view, so we're looking through the camera. As you can see, we know where the camera is. Oh sorry, I touched the light. Don't have to touch the light. The camera is right in the first cube, so we just want to position it. We want the camera to take the same angle as this perspective here. So easy to achieve. Just right click this perspective, go to copy point of view and choose camera. So it's going to copy this point of view to the camera so we can see the camera's taking it. Now let's start some of it. I use this a lot to do my camera animation. It helps a lot instead of moving the handles. So let's just add some camera animation to it. I'm going to go to frame 0, and here I'm going to focus in perspective. When I move, it's not changing my camera, so I'm just gonna go to the first cube. Let's just play a little bit to know where the first cube is, right there. And I'm gonna rotate around this, and I'm gonna focus on the first one, just about that. Yeah, and then I'm gonna select my camera and make sure that there are keyframes on it. So I'm gonna right click and say animate transform group, and I go and do the same thing to the rotation, animate rotate group, and that's gonna set auto keyframe on it for you. Oh sorry, I should have been on frame 0 whilst I was doing that, so I can quickly, it's alright. You can just right click any of them and say remove all translate, remove all rotation, because I just want to be on frame 0 before I do that. So we do that again, all translate, animate, all rotate, so it puts the keyframe on frame 0. So at frame 0 we want to take this point of view, so right click and say point of view. It sets keyframe for the camera already, and we're gonna move ahead, play a little bit, right about 60 frames. We can just zoom out, pan left or pan right, rotate to this angle, zoom out, not zoom entirely out, so about here, there, and then we copy point of view to camera again. So it's gonna set keyframe on frame 60, save it. So now if we play, we can see our animation going on, and it seems like we should be out a bit more because we're losing the animation from this side. So right about frame 60, go there again. I'm gonna zoom out a bit and copy that to point of view. Yeah, should have it this way. So let's play it. Perfect. Great. So now from frame 60 to the last frame, what we're gonna do is to go around it like that way, and then also face down. Just look overhead shot, make sure it's in the center, and we can go close a little bit if we want. So we're going to copy that point of view as well to the 3D camera. So let's see what we have from frame 60. This is what we get. Great. So we get that, and then going on. That's great. So let's move ahead and add some colors to this of the cube by just changing the color of the point light. So if you change the point light color, you can see that we got the cube changed as well. So we need to randomize these values. We have red, green, and blue. That's going to give us the random colors. So what I'm going to do on the red channel, I'm going to right click and go to modify with, and I'm going to use a perturb. If we put on there and go on the modifier tab, let's set the value to 1. We're not going to change the strength or the wobble. We're just going to increase the speed just to see it. About 3 will do. I don't want to see the whole animation. I just want to see the cube. So let's center on the cube to see what the perturb is doing. So if we play, you can see what it's essentially doing. It's like a flashing light. It flashes like that. So let's increase the speed a bit. That's not bad. And right now it's just going all the way down to black, so we can reduce the value to like 0.5. so it goes, we can say 0. If we set the value to 0, then we have the full black to full intensity, but we don't want that obviously, so we just want to leave a little bit. So let's make it like 0.5. so that's the flashing that we want. Great. So now we're still not getting the colors because we just put the perturb on one channel. We can of course put another perturb and change the values, and put another one here and change the value, but that's going to be tedious. Each time we want to change values, we have to just go there. So instead, I'm going to show you a trick where you can use the same thing but offset the time. So what I'm going to do is to right click on the green channel, and then we're going to say connect to, instead of modify with. If you see a modify, you're adding a new thing, but you're connecting to one that is already there. So we choose the perturb 1 and then choose the value. As you can see, if you play here, they're both moving at the same time, and that's not going to give us any randomness. So what we can do to get the randomness to move at a different time is to right click the green again, and this time, because we already have a modifier on it, it gives you insert. What insert is going to do is whatever you're going to choose now is going to insert whatever is already on it into the new one you're going to choose. Let me just choose it to explain perfectly. So I'm going to choose calculate first operand, and let's see, if we choose it and we go to the modifier tab, we can see that we have the perturb already there, but we also got a calculate on point light green value, which is this operand thing that we chose. And in the first operand, we have the perturb linked to it. So if you right click it, you can see it, you can remove perturb 1 because that's the insert. That's what it's doing. It's inserting it in the new operand. So right now we can choose an operator to do all sort of things to it, but we're just going to leave it. We can add a second operand, so that's if we can add a new value to bump it up, and we don't want to add anything, we just leave it. What instead we're going to do is to go on to the timing tab, and if I expand this a bit to see the full names here, it says first operand's time scale. This time scale will actually stretch the time to slow it down or to make it fast. That's not what we need. Instead, we're going to do the first operand's time offset. That's what we want. So let's just offset this time to about 20 frames, and let's begin to play. We're beginning to see different colors. We're beginning to see green and red, and that's cool. Fitly, let's just move. See the, let's look at the scene where the camera is. Save. So now you can see that we're getting different colors. On the blue channel, we're going to do the same thing. Connect to perturb value 1, and we're going to click it again and say insert calculate, and we'll go into the modifier. Now be careful because you got 2 of them. You got one for the blue and one for the green. We've already done the green already. If you double click it, you can see that we did the green. If you double click on the blue one, that's what we want to change. So we also want to go to the timing of it, and we want to change the offset. If we set it to 20, it's going to be the same timing as the green. So why don't we just do minus 30 or something just to randomize. So now we fully have random. If you look at the channels when you play, they all move at a different time, and that gives us the randomness. Great. Let's save this scene. And the next thing we're gonna do is to add some floor and some reflection to our scene to make it beautiful. So with that, I'm gonna build it down here. So with the floor, I'm just gonna put down a background nude, and this background, on the background nude, I'm just gonna choose this kind of color. It's just a bit bluish, I don't know, sea blue or whatever it is. What we're gonna do is to create some dots, put down a shape nude, and we're also gonna connect it to the main scene, and we're gonna call the shape nude floor. We can actually look at the scene view to look at it properly. We're gonna go onto the rotate, and we're gonna rotate it to -90. And we also gonna go and scale it up to about 50, really wide, to cover up the whole scene. We just uncheck affected by light. That way it's just gonna show us without lightning. Type our background color into the floor. So view the background here. I'm gonna just copy this background nude and paste again. Let's view that for a second. We're gonna put a mask on it, and we're gonna scale it down a bit. Let's make our dot on top of this background. The background color, let's make it a bit darker, so we bring it down here to make it a bit darker. So now if we view this, add a transform nude to this dot, 2D transform. With that transform selected, I can scale it down, and whilst I'm scaling it down, we can change the edges to wrap, and this is going to give us a nice pattern going on. That's, we can still scale it all the way down to get what we are looking for. So something about 0.03 should do, or 0.03. That's too much. So 0.008, or we can just hold control and then move it till we get what we want. So this is quite okay for what we're looking for. So 0.015, I guess. That's cool. But you can see that it's not looking as round as it is. It's looking stretched over here. That's because of our framing. The image size of the background is set to 1920 by 1080, so it's not square. So we need to square this up. So I'm gonna select both. I'm gonna select this one and say auto resolution, uncheck it. That's gonna make you be able to type in here. So I'm gonna make it square. So let's just make it 500 by 500. That's the first one is done. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this one. Go down there, auto resolution, 500 by 500. Now let's take care of the reflection. Let's view the main scene here now. So the way to achieve the reflection is by tricking yourself. Let's put down a transform nude. This one's going to be a 3D transform. Put it down. We're going to transform, we're going to flip the cubes to make it seem like they're reflecting on the floor. So we just pipe in the duplicate here, because if you look at it here, we have a copy of it. And for the meantime, I'm just going to add it to this scene, and then watch this scene here. Disconnect the background, and let's see what this one does. So what I'm going to do is to flip it on the y-axis. So the trick is go to scale, and under scale you're going to uncheck lock XYZ, and on the y-axis we're going to do -1. So that's going to flip it around. So this is what we get. If you look at it alone, that is on the floor on the bottom, and this one is at the top. So if you put them together, it looks like a cool reflection. So now we don't want to merge it on the scene, we just want to bring it down and merge it to the floor scene. So add it to the floor, and we can then pipe both of them in here. You can't see it because the floor is obviously on top of it, because if you begin to move the floor down, and by the way, the way to get rid of these controls are, in a way, it's like selecting the different controls. You can just right click and go to controls and say only show active tool. Yeah, show active tool only. So we're gonna do that. That way wherever it's selected is what's gonna show. If I select the floor and I move it down, you can see that the reflection is there, but the floor is there. We can just leave the floor as it is, and what we can do is now go to the floor material, and we're gonna go to it material, and we're gonna bring the alpha down. That's gonna make it look blend together whatever is underneath it. So the alpha about 0.6 is cool. So now we're getting our reflection there. Great. So the next thing that we're gonna do is, if we play, you can see that we're getting some the cube and the floor are all sitting on the same position. The 3D scene doesn't know which one to show you, so show you a piece of each of them. So what we can do is to select the floor merge node, which has the reflection, both the reflection and the floor, and we're going to move it down a bit on the y-axis, just moving it minus 0.01 to move it down so they're not sitting on top of each other, and that should take care of it. And let's save our scene. So if we play right now, we can see we've got a nice reflection going on. So we're going to put down a render node, connect the main scene to the renderer. Let's view it on the right side, and as we can see, there's no lightning. We've got to enable lighting with the rendering so we can get our lightning. Great. And we also want to right click and change the options, check out underlay, so we don't see the transparent background. We just see the black, we just see the transparent background. Alright, so now we want to blur the background, the floor and the reflection. We want to blur them a little bit. So what we can do is to put down a blur node, and let's just pump it up a bit. We're gonna put down an override node, override 3D, and then pipe in the floor scene to it, and then disconnect the floor scene and then connect that one to the main scene. Move this back. So we're gonna go down and say object ID, say do object ID in the scene. So we're gonna make it like 10, just a number no other node is using. So all of this have been assigned an object ID of 10. On the renderer, we can go to output channels and then make sure we are exporting object ID. On the blur, we can go to the settings page and then we can say use object ID, and then we can give it the number that we've said, 10, and now it's going to blur the floor. But this way it's going to introduce to us some kind of edge problem. So I'm going to show you another way you're going to use this object ID. Instead of putting it on the object, using the blur on the object ID, we're going to just uncheck it. We're not using it there. We're going to add in a bitmap mask. So I'm going to type in bitmap and add it to the scene. So I'm going to pipe in my renderer to the bitmap. Let's just view it on the left side, and that's what we're getting. For now, it's just using the alpha. So use object ID, check it, and then put in 10. So it's selecting only the floor, and everything else is going to be black. We can use this as a mask for the blur. So if we pipe in it here, it just blurs the floor, and then we got rid of the edges problem. Though we have a little bit of it if we zoom in, so that can also be taken care of by going to the mask and making sure that we clamp it down so we get completely white on the floor, and also we can soften the edges a bit to get rid of that. So let's go to the blur settings and set it down to about 5. That should do. We just want to color correct the floor a bit. I'll put a color correction down here. I'm going to view that one here, and I'm going to pipe in the mask for it as well, so we affect only the floor. So now we can just bring the gamma down for the floor, or the contrast a little bit. I want the edges of the cube to stand out, so add some sharpness. There we have it. Let's view it, and I'm gonna set it to 2 to sharpen the edges. As you can see, they're a little bit jagged, but before the sharpening, I think we should put a blur, overall blur on the scene to get rid of the jagged, because we're gonna add blur before the sharpening, and this blur, what it's doing is blurring it just 1% of the overall scene, and then we can now add sharpen to it. That way we get a smooth edge. So let's add some glow to it. We're gonna type soft glow, that's what we want. Add it to the scene. Let's view it. It's affecting everything. So what we want to do is we want the glow to only affect the cubes and not the floor. Since we have a mask here, we can just pipe it in here, but that is what is going to affect the floor. But instead, on the glow, we can go to the mask settings, apply mask inverted. That way it's going to select the cubes instead of the floor, and we're going to bring the gain down a little bit, not too much of it. And then we're going to copy the same thing and paste again. This time we're not going to mask it, we're going to add it to the whole scene. We're going to move the threshold so that it only affects the brightest area. So now if we increase the glow size to about that, we get the cubes glowing like that. But then again, we don't want all the cubes to be glowing at the same time. We only want them to glow when the light intensity is at 1. So what we can do is to increase the threshold to almost to like 1, so something about 0.8 will do. Let's bring down the glow size a bit and also increase the intensity, the gain a bit. So from here we can see perfectly that these cubes are only glowing because the intensity is above that. And then glow size, you can increase it more, and then we can blend it in a little bit. Finally, let's add a color corrector to it to grade the whole scene. So the whole thing, we're going to bring the gamma down, increase the gain a bit. There you have it. Check the link below for my Patreon and support me to do more of this stuff. I've got a few more tutorials coming up, so like I said, hit the notification button, subscribe to my channel, keep your comment coming, keep your requests coming. And it's been Eric, thank you.